And joining us now here on the Jay Stevens podcast, it is actually someone that's been to my home, friends with my brother. It's Khyle Marshall. Used to play basketball at Butler University. Now he is the director of scouting at University of Illinois Chicago. Khyle Marshall, how you doing?
I'm doing great, Jay. Thank you for having me, man.
Yeah, man, no problem, Kyle. I was looking back, going through and looking through some of your highlights, some different bios that were written about you. And one interesting thing that I found about you that I had not known prior was that you were the district champion in high jump as a sophomore in high school. What was that like going back to those high school days at in high school, being a really good high jumper?
Oh man, wow, we're going deep into the archives. um, Honestly, I don't know what got me into trying high jump. My PE teacher, uh, I guess he actually announced our games, and he just happened to be the track coach. And I guess he saw me dunk a couple times and like thought like, hey, this dude could be a really good high jumper. I said, you know what, like I enjoyed playing basketball at the time, but I didn't know if it was gonna be like my career, my profession, or anything. I didn't know how far I was gonna get into it. So I was like, you know what, let me just try a different sport and see how I like it. So I got into high jump and I actually realized I'm like, hey, I'm actually pretty decent at this. All I just need is a little bit of coaching and some practice. And hey, who knows? Like I could be a pretty decent high jumper. And uh, long story short, like I ended up winning the district championship there, which was yeah, it was actually pretty crazy to think that something I just thought I was just gonna do for fun, and I actually did pretty well at it. Unfortunately, that same year, on my first jump, I like pulled a hamstring,
Mm.
and that was in the regional championships, like on my first jump, and I was like, maybe this isn't for me. So of course I had to cut that part short and really focus on the basketball part of it. But I enjoyed it. It was fun, and it was actually pretty cool to come out with a district championship for sure.
What was your highest jump for in high jump?
6'8",
Ooh,
I think.
and that was your first. That was your only year doing it.
Yeah. Did I do it freshman year? I think I only did it 1 year.
That's pretty. That's pretty good. One you're going out 6'8". Did you ever have any thought, maybe after recovering from the hamstring, junior or senior year, going back out and trying it again since you were so good when you started?
um, I did. I did think about it. Um, just because as a kid, you used to always have like those little outside events called like field days, like
Hmm.
in elementary school, and I always thought those were fun. So like I always thought of track meets as like just a big field day. um you know just a very specific event that you're focused on. I thought it was actually pretty cool. I did think about it, but I don't know. I figured basketball would definitely be something I'd want to pursue more. By that year, I started that summer, my sophomore year. I started going to camps and playing travel, and I ended up getting a couple scholarships after my sophomore year. So that's when I really started to figure out, hey, maybe basketball will be the path for me.
Gotcha. Well, basketball, junior year, averaged 26 points, 12 and a half rebounds as a junior. Senior year, averaged 28 and 11 as a senior at Flanagan High School. What were some of those memories? I see the smile on your face. I know basketball in high school must have been a big thing for you. What comes to your mind when you think about just your high school career playing basketball?
I mean, honestly, just looking back, going from my freshman to my senior year, just the big turnaround that our program had made. My freshman year, I mean, I was fortunate enough to play varsity all 4 years. My freshman year, we were 2-23.
What?
Um, yeah, we were awful.
That's horrible.
Yeah,
Oh
we were
my.
2-23, so we were so bad. And my senior year, we ended up qualifying for what we called down there the Big Eight, which were the
Okay.
top 8 public schools in Broward County. We qualified for that tournament. Played in the Tampa Shootout, and were able actually to play in the Sunshine Game of the Crow Classic, which was actually not a Crow Classic, the City of Palms, which was actually a big tournament at the time. So going from that to being in a Big 8 qualifier, and then we actually ended up winning our district championship that year as well, and actually getting out of the first round of the regional tournament. It was just, I was able to reflect and look back of like how far we came, and the adversity we had coming into my freshman year to actually ending my career being, a champion. I remember after that game, fun fact, I actually hit the game-winning shot that district championship game, which was actually
Oh,
really
wow.
cool, which was awesome. I remember going to the crowd, hugging my mom, and like actually crying because like everything just reflected on, just the work we put in and everything we had to go through just to get us to that point. It was just an awesome feeling. And, I was fortunate to play with a group of guys my senior year that, we really enjoyed being around each other on and off the court. Those guys are still really good friends of mine to this day. It was an incredible experience.
Kyle, some of the records that you had back at that time in high school, 25 rebounds as a junior school record. Then I don't know if it's been broken since, but also you scored 52 points against Lincoln Park. I believe that was your senior year in 2009. Between those two games, a lot of people say that 52 points, that's kind of like an achievement, but also 25 rebounds, that's an amazing thing as well. You're dominating on the boards, dominating, scoring the points in two separate years. I forget who you played, who the opponent was, the 25 rebounds game. But the 52 points, man, what was that like when you're just in that zone where you're just locked in and the ball's leaving your hand, knowing you're a lefty where it's harder for guys to guard you, and you're getting that ball that's going through the hoop and your confidence is rising? What was that like being in that zone that day against Lincoln Park?
Oh man, so a crazy story. So I have a mentor who I'm still really close to this day, Alberto Jean-Pierre. The game before that, I think I had 44. And I thought that was going to be a career high for me. And my coach was like, Alberto, he was like, now your next thing to do is score 50. You got to 40, now you got to go to 50. Who would have thought that was going to be the very next game?
Right.
So that was pretty weird, but pretty cool also. But it's actually crazy because the stat was actually wrong. I thought I had 48.
Okay.
So I thought I was trying to get 50. I was at 48. I thought I was at 48, and it was towards the end of the game, and the team was pressing us. And I remember myself dribbling through the press, having like probably 3 guys wide open. I apologize to my teammates at that point, but I'm like, I really had to get to 50. So I'm like dribbling through the press. I beat the press by myself with 3 guys wide open down the court, and I dunk it, which was a very selfish 50 point, but it's 50 points. But come to turn out, that dunk was my 52nd point.
Okay.
So I deeply apologize. Now I should have passed that ball when I was. If I knew I was already at 50, I should have just pitched the ball ahead and been a better passer. But it was just crazy. That game, it's just it. When you just feel, you just have that confidence. Like in the beginning of a game, like you go through the first quarter and things are just clicking. Like shots are falling, and you're playing well. You don't really think about what you're gonna finish with, but then when you notice like, hey, I can score 50, it's like another gear gets in your head, and I'm like, all right, it's time to get going.
So Kyle, I've heard all my life that the basketball players, they either keep track of their points in their head or they're constantly checking the scorebook to see how many points that they had. How did you keep track during that game about how many points you were at that time?
Honestly, I was one of those kids that would keep track in my head.
That's amazing. I don't know how you guys do it. I really don't, because you're running back and forth, high level basketball at that time, high school, highest level you played, and then all of a sudden it's like in my head, I know I got 20. I know I got 25. Yeah. I got to get to 30. Like you guys always are able to like keep track of it in your head. It's an amazing thing to do that, because I would struggle easily trying to get that done.
Yeah, I don't know how I was able to do that. But that game, I somehow lost count. Obviously with the 52 instead of 50. I somehow lost count, but yeah, that was, I don't know how I was able to do it. Like that was just always something I would do. Like I remember as early as as I started playing, like I just knew the amount of points I scored every game, and it just carried on. Um, Not so sure if I did it as much in college because there's definitely a lot more thinking um, at the college level. But in high school, yeah, it was. I was just constantly on alert on on how many points I had.
Speaking of college, the difference between high school and college, what was that recruiting process like? We already see some highlights from your senior year, from the 52-point game, the average, the with the district championship or whatever regional championship that you had, and then going from there down in South Florida, the recruiting process for you, what was that like back then in like 2009, 8, 2010, whenever you ended up deciding where to play your collegiate basketball?
Uh, I mean, for starters, like once you realize like there's coaches that once you get offered a scholarship, I mean, it's a very fulfilling. It's a great feeling. Knowing that someone's out there, is putting their time and effort into you, and they believe in you, and they're willing to give you a free education to play for their school. So it's, I mean, it's a great feeling. And I'm always very grateful for all the coaches that did recruit me. I mean, the process was, I mean, it was fun. I enjoyed it. You know, I've always followed college basketball. Um, to this day, I mean, I enjoy watching college games, of course. Me being in college coaching, but it was definitely a pretty rigorous process. I definitely had to think about all the schools that had recruited me, and I had to, of course, do my research and see which program would probably be best fit for me. Where can I come in and be the most successful? It was definitely a lot of thinking on my end, and then I had to go back and track, like back then, like the calls and the text messages were not as lenient as they are now. Now you can call as many times, text as many times. Back then, you only allowed one phone call a month.
A
Um,
month?
yes, you got one phone call. The coaches
Oh
got one phone
man.
call a month. Um, and I didn't have a cell phone,
Okay.
so coaches were calling my house, and so I would, what my mom would do, my mom and my dad, we would write on a notepad um, who called that month, and we would guesstimate like how long the conversations went. So I mean, if you have one call a month, obviously I'm thinking like who's gonna make the most out of that one phone call. Some phone calls were just like, hey, just checking in on you, bye, like 30 seconds. Some were like 2 minutes, some were 5. Butler, we were literally on the phone at least 20 minutes every time. um every time they called, we were on the phone for a long time. And those were the ones, when it came down to my last three, it was who made the most out of those phone calls. And of course, obviously Butler was one of those three. And then once you get to those last schools, it gets a lot tougher because it's like the finish line, and all three of these schools that put so much time and effort um into you. And honestly, like when I called the other two schools and told them like I wasn't committing, my heart was pounding,
Yeah.
because I mean I legitimately, I sincerely felt bad, because it's like you paid for me to come out on an official visit, like you made all these calls, like you came to my school. We've had a good relationship up to this point, and for me to say no, I mean, it was heart wrenching for me. I was really scared to do it, but um, I had to be told by my coach, like, "Hey, man, it's a business. I mean, if they don't get you, they're just going to go to the next one." And I had to remember that. But I mean, it was a very rigorous process.
What were some of the schools other than Butler that were going after you?
So my last three was Butler, Old Dominion, and UAB.
Okay.
I had offers from Kansas State, Auburn. Those are some of the bigger schools. University of Houston. Um, Man, so long ago. those are the ones I can remember at the top of my head. Uh, but yeah, I mean, it came. I mean, I had quite a bit coming out, but it came down to Old Dominion, UAB, and Butler were my last three.
Were those calls that were coming in from Butler, were those from Brad Stevens himself or somebody else on the staff?
It started off with Micah Shrewsbury.
Okay.
Micah was my initial recruiter. I spoke the most with him, and then eventually it got to Brad. I actually had uh, Coach Terry Johnson. He came to my games as well.
Okay.
That was also a really great thing about Butler. Like I built a relationship with every single guy on the staff, um, not just my main recruiter, but Micah Shrewsbury was my main recruiter. Um, he actually did a home visit probably right before my senior year. He did a home visit, and then Brad did another home visit as well. So I had two Butler coaches actually make a home visit. Um, and once Brad made the home visit, that's when I committed. Um, so I mean, I could just tell from day one that Butler was that school that was really invested in me.
And I have a feeling that going into your freshman year at Butler, you commit to Butler, you're a South Florida kid going up to Indianapolis, Indiana. The winter was probably different than anything you had experienced. But I don't even know that even you or anybody on the team expected Butler to go to the national championship game after going the year before, playing Duke, losing to Duke off of that missed shot by Gordon Hayward. And then the very next year happened to be your freshman year. You're in the NCAA championship game against UConn. That was probably like a dream come true. You get on campus, you're playing basketball, and then all of a sudden, we're playing in the last game of the season.
I tell you what, if someone were to tell me we were going to get back to the national championship game after the initial Duke game, I would have thought you were crazy. I was actually in the crowd for that game. I flew up for that national championship
Oh,
game,
wow.
and I'm watching Eric Fromm and I. We actually went together. As exciting as it was, we're Fromm and I are sitting there. We're kind of pissed. It's like, gosh, why can't we have been born a year earlier? So we can experience this. This is incredible. And for us to do it again, Fromm and I sit back and laugh. And it was like, man, do you remember like us sitting at the game and we were like, we wish we were here, and now it's happening. It's incredible, and to be a freshman at that, you're already going through the culture shock of being on your own. It's a completely different game as far as level of competition from high school. So I'm like fresh off of playing out of high school, and to play on the biggest stage in college basketball my first year. It was incredible. I tell you what, when I checked in for the first time against VCU in the Final Four, when I first checked in, I'm looking in the crowd. I'm like, there's over 70,000 people in this stadium right now, sitting there watching me, and I was scared. I was nervous. But then at the end of the day, I remember I'm playing basketball. This is fun. I'm enjoying this, and it made all the hard work we put in that year much more worth it. If we didn't win the Horizon League championship, we're not getting to the tournament. At one point, we were 5-4 in the Horizon League, and then we actually shared the conference title with Milwaukee, but Milwaukee had the outright bid because they swept us. So if we don't win the Horizon League tournament, chances are we don't make it. We don't make it to the NCAA. So we were very fortunate, very lucky, and everything was we were able to click at the right time. And looking back on the national championship game, of course, we wish the outcome would have ended in our favor, but it was worth it. We had a great group of guys that believed in one common goal, and we came up short.
What was that battle like in the championship game? I remember watching that game, and I think I was in Florida at the time in Tampa, and I was watching the game with people. They're like, "This game's not fun to watch." Like people wanted to turn the game off because it wasn't like your typical or your what you expect a national championship game to be from you being actually in that game. What stood out? What was that battle like that year in the national championship?
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, we picked the wrong game to have one of our worst shooting performances.
Yeah.
So I mean, to the fans that were watching and you, I mean, I apologize. Um, but I mean, it's just one of those games where just the ball wasn't falling.
Mhm.
You know, as simple as that sounds, it just the ball just wasn't getting through the net, and it sucks to say that, and it sucks for that being the reason, but that's what it was. We just couldn't hit shots, and it was really unfortunate for that.
What was it like being coached by Brad Stevens while he was there at Butler?
Oh, Brad's a great guy. Um, he'll be one of the all-time greatest coaches in my book. He's I mean, a genuine dude, always looking to learn, um, even from his players. He had great relationship with his guys, with his staff, with his players. He was one of those coaches that you just want to play hard for.
Yeah.
You want to succeed for him, not just yourself. Like you want to do well for him, and his approach, every practice and every game was just, I mean, incredible. I mean, his preparation. You know, he wasn't like the most fiery guy.
Mm-hmm.
He's very very calm, very collected. But I mean, he knew how to get you riled up. He knew how to get you excited and get you pumped for games. And I mean, he was incredible. He was incredible to coach for. And I mean, I'm very fortunate to have a guy like him. I was fortunate to play for a guy like him.
What's one thing that you took away from him when he was coaching you that you tried to implement in the young men that you're leading right now?
I think it's establishing a culture,
Okay.
establishing a winning culture, and not budging for that culture. The biggest advice he told me when I got into this was, I've never regretted cutting a guy loose that was not willing to abide by our culture. Um, if a player was not willing to follow along, follow suit, I mean, he wasn't afraid to cut him or release him. He said the culture should be non-negotiable, and he told me, like, to this day he's never regretted cutting any guys that couldn't uphold the culture, and I think that was really good advice. I mean, there's especially from a guy that's had success like that. Like, if he obviously knows what it takes to win, so if you're against him, I mean, you're only hurting yourself. And um, to this day, that just sticks to the back of my mind.
Kyle, I think it was around this time you were playing for Team USA, um, the under 19 U.S. national team. And I'm look at the roster right now. You play with guys like Tim Hardaway Jr. I think Joe Jackson out of Memphis was the second leading scorer on that team. Played with Jeremy Lamb. Played with Myers Leonard, Doug McDermott, Patrick Young from Florida. Just being able to represent your country, especially at such a young age, I'm sure that was something that was like shocking, had your nerves going a little bit, but also looking back, you're like, I was able to wear USA on my chest.
Oh man, I mean, it's an incredible honor. I mean, extremely incredible. Uh, I cannot be more thankful to be part of that team, to be part of a fraternity of guys that are fortunate enough to wear the name USA across their chest. It was an incredible experience. I was actually very fortunate enough to even get a tryout, let alone be named one of the 14 guys to play on that team. I mean, it was incredible. I mean, obviously, we didn't finish the way we wanted, but I mean, I wouldn't trade that experience for the world. I mean, it was incredible. Um, those guys were a lot of fun to play with, and some of them I do keep in touch with them to this day. But that was, that was an incredible experience.
Dude, man, I'm not. I played high school football, but never at the level that anybody that you did in college or Team USA or scoring 52 points in a high school basketball game. Like that was not me. I'm not that kind of athlete. So it just amazes me, and I get marveled and kind of in shock and awe maybe when I talk to people like yourself that are just able to have the honor to play with them, and then hearing back about the memories from Team USA, Butler, national championship, Brad Stevens. These are all things that people probably listening to this or watching via YouTube that they would dream of doing. And you've been able to do a lot of great things at such a young age. And I'm sure some of your team, some of the youngsters, some of the guys that you're leading right now at UIC, they're probably like, hey, Khyle, man, tell me a story or two from Team USA. Tell me a story or two from Brad Stevens. They're like, dude, you've been able to do a lot at such a young age. And Team USA itself, is there one game, one story, one teammate that you'll take that story and tell people for the next 50, 60 years?
Oh man. Wow. Where to even start? So, and to this day, I think the coaches or the selection committee, I think they did this on purpose.
Okay.
When we roomed for training camp and tryouts, I'm pretty sure they roomed rivals together.
Okay. I like this.
So like if you look down the roommate list, it was Tim Hardaway Jr. and Keith Appling, Michigan and Michigan State. Me and Jeremy Lamb just came off a national championship game. So I'm like, man, I think you guys did this on purpose. And I'm gonna take that to the grave. I think they definitely did that on purpose. But I mean, Jeremy was a really cool guy. I mean, incredible dude. Another funny story is he mistakenly dropped his DVD of the national championship game in the middle of the floor. When I was coming back in, so it was in the Olympic Training Center. Of course, it's like a dorm. It's a campus. So we're staying in a dorm. Obviously, it's community showers. So I'm coming back in from the shower, and I open the door, and right in the middle of the floor is the national championship disc. And Jeremy's just sitting there, and I'm like, bro, really? He's like, oh, my bad. I didn't mean to drop this. I'm like, no, you did that on purpose. But, I thought that was funny. But
and it's kind of funny. Like if I'm in his shoes, that's something I would do too. It's like,
I'm
I'm not
not
going to say anything, but here, this is here. I'm just going to be chilling here, wait for you to come back.
Oh, if I would have won, I would have did the same thing. I probably would have been more egregious, but, he was very subtle about it. But, yeah, I think those are, my best memories was that training camp. Was just hanging out with the guys and really getting to know them.
A few things that Khyle left with from leaving at Butler: had 92 wins at Butler, 6-2 record in the NCAA tournament. When he graduated, he was 17th on the all-time scoring list, 16th in career rebounding, 15th in school history. That number escapes me, but I do know you were you had 1,000 points and 500 rebounds combined, 1,373 points, and then also 609 total rebounds. I know it's 4 years. I know you played in 3 conferences. That's something that not many people can say. We went from Horizon League in a couple of years to the A10 1 year to the Big East. So you're going from up and up level of competition. But just, dude, your collegiate career, everything that you did, not just from freshman year to senior year, there's a lot that went into that. And I'm sure there are a memory or two that may come into your mind, Khyle, when you think about what it meant to you to play basketball at Butler University.
Even before they even recruited me, I knew about the Butler tradition. I knew that they had a tradition of winning. When I was in high school, I always considered them a high major school and playing in a mid major conference. The Horizon League, of course, is a great competitive league. But Butler definitely had that level of national notoriety that I knew about already. And when they recruited me, I thought it was awesome. But to wear the name Butler on my chest is an honor in its own. And that's something I'll cherish to this day. Not even as a basketball player, but even after after playing. You know, there's just a close knit group of guys um, that went through, you know, what I went through that, you know, we still communicate to this day. I mean, there's a lot of those players, those former players are coaches to this day. I mean, I'm on staff with Willie Beasley right now, who's the all-time winningest player in Butler history. Um, so I mean, there's a tradition, there's a fraternity, and there's that lifelong bond that you share when you wear the name Butler on your chest, and you know, I'll forever be grateful for that.
Right now, the NCAA tournament's abnormal as far as it being in one local area. And the place that you called home for 4 years is hosting NCAA tournament games in Hinkle Fieldhouse. I've watched you play there. I have seen numerous games at Hinkle, and to me, it's still one of the best venues to watch basketball. You played in numerous venues. Is that at the top of your list as far as when it comes to places to play basketball?
100%. Hinkle Fieldhouse is definitely the greatest venue in college basketball. As far as history wise, you know, fans wise, Hinkle Fieldhouse it's incredible. And when I was getting recruited there, they tell you like when you walk into Hinkle, that you just get this feeling when you just walk in. And I no offense, I thought it was pretty corny. I'm like, what are you talking? Like, what feeling? And then when I walked in, I was like, huh, like it's like unexplainable. It's like you're like walking into history. It's like it's like years and years of tradition and you know history just coming together and giving you a hug. If that's the best way I can explain it. I mean that arena is it's special. I mean it's a special place, and you know I'm fortunate to call that place home. I mean I look on Twitter and you know seeing like a lot of people talking about how great of an atmosphere it is at Hinkle, and I'm you know sitting back like yeah that I used to play there a lot. I'd also get I also see the funny glare, like the glare that they have on the court, and I'm like, hey man, that's a typical 2 o'clock game at Hinkle Fieldhouse. Like if you don't like it, you know, the door's right there. But I mean, Hinkle's a special place, man, and it'll always hold a special place in my heart.
After you got done playing basketball at Butler, you had the opportunity or the option, like many people do. Do I continue playing? Do I try to go to the NBA? Do I try to go to the G League or maybe the D League at that time? Do I try to go play overseas? What route? People have to ask themselves, what route do I want to go? You ultimately ended up playing 4 years overseas. I know Portugal is one place you played. There are a few other countries that you played in. What went into the thought process, Khyle, from ending Butler's career to what was next and then choosing to play overseas? What was that thought process like?
Yeah, I mean that was also a really stressful process. You know, right after, of course, I signed with an agent. I was fortunate enough um, to have a workout with the Miami Heat and the Boston Celtics coming out of college. Um, you know, it's a tough process. I mean, it's a lot of time, a lot of work goes into it. You know, I try to tell a lot of people like if you're looking to go overseas, don't think it's just an easy thing to do. I mean, I didn't get my first job. My first actual job overseas wasn't until December of my rookie year. So I
Hmm.
basically sat from September till December, um, waiting for a job. Um, it's a tough process. I mean, and you know, it's not now. It's your job now. Like um, it's not college anymore. Like this is what you're doing for a living. Um, and it's the same. And it's incredibly cutthroat. Um, you know, if you're not producing, you easily go home because I mean, those coaches, those GMs, they have a job to do, and that job is to win. Especially in a lot of leagues, if you finish last or if you finish towards the bottom of that league, you can get regulated and bumped down uh, to second division or to a smaller division. So they're in constant need of wins. Like they need to win, otherwise there's consequences. And if the guy that they bought in is not producing, they're not afraid to let you go. Um, So, I mean, those are things that I really didn't realize um, coming out of college. But now looking back, I mean, it makes a whole lot of sense. They're very particular into what kind of guys they want, what type of guys that they think will be successful um, in their franchise. But I mean, as tough as it was, I don't regret anything one bit. I mean, I enjoyed every country I went to. I mean, I was able to experience different cultures, different languages, different parts of the world, and all of it was at an expense of playing basketball. It was incredibly fun, and I was able to make new lifelong friends. See places that I never thought I'd see before. Um, it was incredible. It was a fun experience.
Kyle, we're going to end off with this here. After you had 4 years playing professionally overseas, I found the countries now: Japan, Dominican Republic, Spain, and Portugal. You went to Florida Gulf Coast, video coordinator, grad assistant at Dayton, and then also now you're at UIC. But I want to go back into that year at Dayton because you were able to spend time around a team that was really good, mid-major. If they had a tournament, they would have gone to the tournament, and I expected a deep tournament run from Dayton that year. And there was a guy by the name of Obi Toppin who now plays for the New York Knicks that you were able to watch every single game, every second, a lot of practices, a lot of the battles in practice. They prepared him for the game. Just Obi Toppin, the basketball player, from what you saw at Dayton, what stands out?
Oh, he always wants to get better. He was a total gym rat. He knows where he comes from and where he was at Dayton didn't come overnight. I mean, if you were to know his story, coming out of high school, no scholarships, having to go prep year, there was a lot of things that played into his fire. And he knows he wasn't one of those highly recruited guys coming out of high school. He had to work his tail off to get where he is, and he did not stop. I mean, he constantly wants to get better. He constantly wants to get in the gym. He constantly wants to work out. I mean, he's an incredibly humble kid, um, and that's something that really stood out to me. A kid with that much success, he didn't let any of that stuff get to his head. He was still that same goofy kid off the court. He was an incredible kid, and I'm really, really happy for him, and I'm really fortunate I got a chance to coach him for a year.
That's amazing, man. I got one more thought, kind of goofy maybe, but when he did that between the legs dunk in the game, I think it was last year. Did that shock you? Because I know it shocked everybody in the gym. I saw the reaction. Did that shock you?
It didn't,
Okay.
because he did it the year prior as well,
Oh, okay. Okay.
and he did it when the game was even closer. That game, the first time, which was incredibly gutsy of him to do. I believe it was like a 4-point game in the second half, and he decided to go between the legs. And this is his freshman year. I'm like, wow, that's bold. For him to do it his sophomore year, I mean, first of all, it was incredible. I mean, we were fortunate to have a comfortable lead at that point, so it wasn't as scary to see, but I mean, it was incredible. And then I remember when we came back into the timeout, Obi kind of apologized because he knew, like, when he did it last year, I don't think Coach Grant really appreciated it. So when he came to the bench, he's like, my fault. He's like, my fault. I was like, I'm sorry. I just had to. I don't know what I was thinking. But, I mean, all we could do was laugh, because, I mean, we knew we were on the verge of, having a perfect A10 record. It was late in the game. And, like I said, Obi's Obi. He likes to have fun. He loves, making people happy, being entertaining the fans. Like, he was definitely a fan favorite there, and for him to do that, I kind of saw it coming.
Kyle, this has been fun, man. Do you have any lasting comments? Or what one comment would you like to leave the people with, either about playing at Butler, playing at Hinkle, playing for Brad Stevens, or maybe something we did not touch? What kind of last comment would you like to leave the people here on the podcast?
Um, I mean, all I can say is looking back, I wouldn't change a single thing. From my journey to playing in high school to where I am now, I mean, everything I've done up to this point, was meant for me to be sitting where I am right now. Um, and looking back, I mean, I have no regrets. I mean, I love where I am. I love what I'm doing. I found a profession that I'm passionate about, that I love, and I couldn't be happier where I am right now.
Khyle, this has been fun, man. Glad we could catch up again. Haven't seen you in a while. But it's been fun. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast and sharing a little bit of your story, some of the memories, the laughs as well. But thank you for being here on the podcast, man. This was a lot of fun.
Absolutely, Jay, man. Really appreciate you having me, man. It was great seeing you again, and hopefully, one of these futures I'll be crashing at your parents' house again.